Hey everyone, and welcome to the Pulse podcast, where we discuss the latest trends in workplace, technology, and healthcare equipment, from artificial intelligence to business transformation. My name is Ryan Meyer. I'm an account executive at DLL within the Life Tech segment. On this episode of the Pulse podcast, we're happy to have James Bailey. James is a global program manager at DLL. James, thank you for joining us today.
Hey Ryan, great to be with you today. Looking forward to our conversation.
James, if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit about how you got started here at DLL and kind of what your day-to-day role is here?
I'm a global program manager in our Life Tech business unit. I manage the commercial relationship of one of our key tech partner programs, which is held with the largest PC and device manufacturer globally. The partnership currently spans 24 countries, touching almost every corner of the world, so it keeps me very busy. I've been with DLL for 1 year. Prior to joining DLL, my whole career was spent in the banking and financial services sector, mainly in equipment finance and leasing segments, working for a couple of different banks or finance houses from across the world.
Thank you. As we dive into this Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrade and kind of why it's such a big deal, one of the first questions that I wanted to start with was, why is the end of Windows 10 support such a big deal for businesses?
Yeah, this is huge. I think this is a really big market shift that we're about to see with the Windows decommissioning that's occurring later in the year in October. If we look at some data that supports this, so we have different data sources suggest different numbers, but roughly 240 million devices are going to be effectively not supported anymore via the Windows decommissioning of Windows 10. They're not going to be able to take on Windows 11, which is a huge number of devices, right? It's absolutely massive global number. And to further that too, there's a projected 8% market growth for the PC market globally that is projected for 2025, all due to this Windows 10 decommissioning event that's happening later in the year. And if we drill down a little bit further into the data, so there's some data that's been released for the tech leasing market too, which is also projecting, no surprises because of the increase in the PC market, a growth of 6.8% for this year too. So all in all, it's huge. It's akin to the kind of market shifts that we saw through the COVID-19 epidemic, where there was a huge demand for more mobile working platforms, laptops, mobiles, etc., tablets. Even bigger probably than the Windows XP support that ended back in 2014, over 10 years ago now. So it's a huge deal for the market. It's going to produce a lot of opportunities for our partners, for our manufacturers, and also opportunity and requirements for end user customers too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of picking your brain on this a little bit, what Microsoft is going to stop supporting and providing at the end of this Windows 10, some security updates. This is a major piece, especially the cybersecurity attacks that have been taking place and the ability to kind of manipulate businesses with this upgraded technology. Windows 11 is placing a large focus on cybersecurity with this upgrade, so it's huge for regulated industries like finance and healthcare, especially. Have you seen those industries specifically kind of take a charge in upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point, Ryan. So, I think first of all, the shift that we're going to see will impact all businesses of all different shapes and sizes, from the small businesses, 5, 10 employees that have some aged devices that are going to all of a sudden become non-compliant or unable to run Windows 11 that need upgrading, all the way up to big entities, big global entities, which will have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of devices that will need to be refreshed. And you're absolutely right. The big thing I think is this security worry, this potential risk that businesses will see, where Windows 10 will become increasingly vulnerable to cyber threats, and not be able to run the latest security software that perhaps a Windows 11 system could operate with and could provide protection with to customers. So it's a big risk. For example, if we think about, okay, just about, so there's cybersecurity risks, but then there's also some go a bit further down there's some compliance and legal requirements as well in some heavily regulated industries, like you quite rightly mentioned there, Ryan, within financial services, healthcare, even retail, and in the legal sectors as well. So unsupported software can violate regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS in the States, which is a major consideration for customers. And if I think about in the last couple of months or even a couple of years, there's been a lot of publicity, and rightly so, about some pretty high-profile cybersecurity cases. I'm from the UK, so I have a couple of examples in the UK I can reference where we have Marks and Spencer's, a big retail group, only in the last few months had a huge cybersecurity breach, and it took down a lot of their systems for a considerable period of time. The MOD, Ministry of Defence in the UK, similar scenario last year. I think in the US, over your side, Ryan, Ascension and Change Healthcare recently had some issues too. So it's widespread. The security issue can't be underestimated, and I think that's going to be a real driver to pushing customers, users of the devices, to look at refreshing and looking at what options they have with that refresh as well this time round. And leasing, I think, can form a perfect part of that conversation.
What risk is there to continue with Windows 10 after this support ends?
I think one of the big risks, we kind of covered it already, right? Is the security piece. That is first and foremost the biggest risk to customers. The second risk I think we have is a form of tech obsolescence, where customers will, if they're running older devices, they'll start seeing their performance drop off, their productivity on those devices. There'll be more issues and more problems with those actual devices. They'll become a little slower to deal with for the users actually using those laptops and PCs. That's a big risk too. Yeah, I think there's a couple. Security is definitely first and foremost the biggest issue I think that we can see, yeah, followed up by that obsolescence piece, I think, too.
Another piece that I would like to add, and feel free to put any of your input into this as well, but operational disruptions for a business standpoint. New software and hardware with other pieces of equipment within your office may not be compatible with the current upgrade to Windows 11 unless you make that switch. And also insurance issues. Some cyber insurance policies may not cover outdated systems as we continue to move into Windows 11. So maybe not immediately in October when this switch takes place, but going into 2026 and 2027, insurance and compliance with other software products and hardware products you have within your business may become an operational issue as well.
Yeah, that's a really good call out, the insurance piece there, and the operational performance alongside other software and other systems. That's a really good point. And if we look at like the further challenges to, okay, if customers are going through this journey of considering upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11 devices, there's going to be a couple of challenges we're going to see for end user customers too, right? So that change, that refresh is going to most likely attract an increase in some form of cost, whether it's more expensive devices or more expensive systems to support the devices, etc. So cost is important, of course, to any business, whether that's small or large. And so we're going to see an increase in customers looking for solutions that are really tailored to their business, that really work and support through this refresh, right? So that can take a couple of different guises depending on the different customer setups. But rest assured that I think cash flow or cash preservation and looking at optimizing budgets for a refresh like this to this scale, when we've got this level of importance that's sat behind the reason of why customers are changing from Windows 10 to Windows 11, is going to be absolutely real. And then another thing you mentioned there about the disruption to business too. Again, because of the scale of this change, of this refresh, that there's going to be a lot of devices out in the market with customers that will need to be refreshed and changed pretty quickly, for all the reasons we mentioned a minute ago. There's going to need to be, more than ever, a really planned and regimented, well thought out, well orchestrated refresh cycle that's going to go on to minimize that disruption that you quite rightly mentioned a minute ago, Ryan. I think that's absolutely key too. And if we look at that, the bigger customer types, there's more than ever. There's more that goes into a tech refresh than ever before. So yes, there's the device, the actual piece of kit that's being changed here in the operating system that we're talking about. But then there's also all the supporting services, functionalities that go along with that are often bundled into device as a service type transactions, which typically attract those larger customers. So more than ever, there's probably going to be a chance for customers to really think about, okay, I've got a tech refresh. I need to do it because of the reasons we mentioned a minute ago, but how do I do this correctly? What do I want this refresh to do for me as a business? How do I create that and put it all together with the right partner, channel partner to deliver it, the right manufacturer's kit, and then hopefully the right leasing solutions as well to support the whole transition. Does that resonate with what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of segueing from what you just said, I think this is a great question to get into and dive into a little bit deeper is when businesses and clients are looking to go through this refresh process, especially in today's economic climate. Obviously, we know there's a little bit of uncertainty there. What kind of challenges and experiences can they expect when they get into something like this? Specifically, how financing can help, and then also with old devices that they currently are sitting on, how can finance companies or different people kind of assist with the recycling there?
Yeah, good question. Let's break this down into a couple of different areas then. So, first of all, cash preservation or capital preservation for any customer, any type of business, will be key through this process. Making sure that they're making the right decisions on their tech refresh within this Windows 10 to Windows 11 change, from a capital perspective is going to be absolutely key. Leasing provides the opportunity for customers to spread those payments over time, which is really attractive to spread the budgets across the useful years of the devices. Provides predictability as well, right? And it also gives customers clear line of sight to the next refresh, and it removes any of the vulnerability and the volatility that we're seeing in today's economic climate. It really helps to simplify the capital outlay. I think another challenge would be we mentioned a minute ago about the disruption to businesses too. So making sure that customers are aware of exactly what goes into a tech refresh and how they can start putting in other services. When they do look at changing into Windows 11, they can put in other services there into their refresh to really support the ongoing life of the devices for the next 3 years, whether that's from a security point of view or an optimization point of view. I think I think they're probably some of the key pieces. Sometimes we see with leasing as well, there's tax efficiencies to be seen with leasing solutions. Of course, customers are always encouraged; they have to seek their own accounting advice on that point, but it can be a tax efficient way of acquiring new equipment as well. I think they're probably the points that I would touch on there. Ryan, what about from your side?
Yeah, I think financing, when you're talking about AI and these continuous security updates and all the tech that's becoming available and how it's growing from a year-to-year basis, it's rapidly changing, right? So the ability to do an FMV lease where at the end of a 2 or 3 year term, you don't own the equipment and you can also get assistance through your finance company on returning old products and upgrading to new products. You stay relevant and you stay up to date with the best security, but also the best technology that's available to your employees to make their day-to-day life easier and make their time more well spent. There's with this Copilot and AI, it's tasks that typically take 30 to 45 minutes are now taking 15. So your employers are able to get more done in their normal workday with the continuous updates and technology. And touching on recycling the old devices, when customers go into leasing FMV, ITAD is a service that is available to them. And this kind of takes the user end workload off of them and puts it back onto us. So for a small fee each month at the end of service, we send people out to their location to box up all of their old units, data wipe them, make sure everything's clear on their end up to their standards, and take care of the recycling as well. So definitely a very nice touch and added service that's out there in the financing realm as well.
Yeah, it's a great point you raised there. That's becoming even more important, month to month, year on year to customers, isn't it? About what do they do with their old kit that's coming to the end of term, and no more so than when we see this Windows 10 event happen in October later this year. You're absolutely right. Yeah, the ability to take some of the headaches away from customers from a leasing perspective and support that with ITAD services there is really crucial. And we do that in collaboration with our partners, with our manufacturers as well, to make sure it's the most seamless and customer focused journey to take away their old devices, data to wipe, like you mentioned, make sure that we're exposing them in a secure way, and then rolling the new devices in simultaneously. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point and a really important part of what customers need to be considering in this refresh as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any examples or possible scenarios that you could relate to what a successful equipment refresh could possibly look like?
But if I think about other different customer types are perhaps a little bit smaller, so I think this is going to affect all different customers. We said at the very top of the podcast. So whether a customer is a small customer, a medium-sized customer, a large enterprise, a global customer, we're going to have events where there's going to be a refresh required across all types. So the challenges that we're going to see, opportunities, outcomes are probably going to be fairly similar from different customer types, but we may see some nuances when we compare like the smaller customers with bigger customer types. So let's take an example, right? So let's look at a smaller customer where they're faced with this refresh challenge. So smaller businesses, family-run businesses, perhaps something of that size and scale, always cash conscious, of course, quite rightly so, especially in today's economic climate. Maybe there's a limited budget for IT upgrades. Maybe there's still those risks, the security risks, even to small businesses, which may be even more detrimental if things do go wrong for small businesses than ever before. So those risks and those challenges will still be apparent. By putting in new technology, Windows 11 capable devices on some form of leasing solution to those customers provides them with that, first of all, the refresh, they get the kit. They will also get that equipment for predictable monthly costs spread over a period of time, alleviates cash flow concerns for those small businesses, and provides them with that predictability that in not only this year, but next year, maybe in the year after, they will have that predictability of payment for the devices for their IT estate. And that predictability and security, I think, is really valuable to small businesses now. And let's go further with that example with the small businesses. Okay, well, what does that lead? What does that end up with those businesses achieving? The outcomes, if you like, of this refresh, if they go through that leasing journey, where you've got devices that are cutting edge, the brand new devices able to run Windows 11, improve security and compliance, handling and software and capabilities on those devices. We mentioned the predictable monthly cost a moment ago, and the productivity piece in those small businesses that are maybe 5, 10, 15 employees, maybe a touch more. But productivity is pretty key as well. So making sure that you've got the right technology with that small staff base to support their productivity will of course be important too. So that's one example. I mean, if we mention maybe a bigger customer here, so we spoke a moment ago about financial services as a sector. So let's imagine a customer, a larger customer, maybe financial services based, 10,000 plus employees spread across different regions. Let's say. So what are their challenges in this refresh? So coordinating a coherent upgrade process across all their offices will be a challenge and something they consider. Ensuring there's consistency in that rollout and a level of standardization across the board will also be featuring in their thought process. Managing the logistics of not only the new devices going in, but the old devices coming out, back to that ITAD point, will also feature. And if we think about, okay, how does leasing support that kind of customer? Well, a global deployment of Windows 11 devices can be achieved with the likes of DLL, for example. We have a global footprint spanning well over 20 countries. We have the capabilities to put in facilities across different countries for one customer. We can look at centralized asset management solutions, and we can even partner with the channel partners as well to look at customized support and training programs centered around that refresh that the customer is going to go through, and really tailor a solution to that customer, right? So, and we start again getting into the realms of quite interesting things within the leasing space of saying, okay, a customer like that, they will perhaps want something a little bit more bespoke in the structure of their leasing to help with that refresh. I'm thinking things like deferred payments, slow start of their lease. We often see customers, even big customers like this, when we're imagining here in the financial services sector, to want some sort of level of roll into a refresh cost at a lower level to start seeing the refresh, the new devices come in before the payments start accruing, and then hitting that predictable payment piece, which we mentioned for the smaller customer, which still absolutely applies. What are the outcomes then in that kind of scenario? Well, standardized IT infrastructure across the board. Again, very similar to the example you just mentioned there. Improved operational efficiency. We remove that tech obsolescence piece with that refresh, that newer equipment. And ultimately, that business will have a level of enhanced global support and probably training as well that's provided by the partner or the manufacturer to that kind of level.
As we get towards the end here, we're obviously only a few months away from this Windows 10 being officially archived here in October of 2025. For all those listening and resellers and customers that have not yet started this process, what could they do today to get started and really take that step to try to be compliant by this fall?
Yeah, great question. And I think there's a couple of ways we should break this down and attack this. So, okay, from customers, end user customers, let's start there, and then we'll work back up to reseller partners as well. So, end user customers, I think the messaging is get ahead of the rush. Whenever there's in any facet of life, when there's an event which has an end date or some sort of pinpoint in time, there will inevitably be a rush. And in this case, whether that's stock delays, there's just not enough devices to fulfill the demand, or whether it's just taking a little bit of time to deliberate over what the refresh needs to look and do for that customer, it would pay for those customers to get ahead of time, start thinking about those refreshes and what they need the refresh to look and do for their business. Ultimately, that's, I think, the messaging to customers. And as much as we think about the refresh being the new devices coming on, to the points we made a minute ago about the ITAD services, also think about those old devices and how you're disposing of those two in the same thought process.
Absolutely.
For resellers, I think this is interesting. So for resellers, I think there's probably three main things that I would touch on. So, or actually four. So one is there's the opportunities, the size and scale of the opportunity is huge. There's a massive installed base of 280 million plus devices that we know that will be up for refresh. So focusing on those and in their key sectors as well, where we know that leasing is important to customers. I think areas like education or public sector. That's first and foremost, I think, looking at supporting those kind of customers as best as possible. Point two is urgency drives demand. And if we've got a date, like I was mentioning a moment ago, if we've got a date in mind where we know that the decommissioning effects and therefore the security risks start coming into play and the concerns that we mentioned earlier in the podcast are applicable, that will create demand. So I think for resellers, again, similar messaging to the customers, think ahead. Think, okay, how can we start planning these refreshes with our customers way ahead of October? What mechanisms are there within leasing, but also within manufacturers as well that the partners will work with? What mechanisms are there in place that can benefit my customer, and we can start talking to my customer about now, well ahead of October. And the third point, if I was a reseller, if I was a partner, I'd be really excited by this. And this is an opportunity to really create some consultative value in their selling proposal, their selling motion. You've got a big event where a customer has a lot of options in front of them, but they know that they have that date in time where they have to make decisions and they have to start protecting their refresh and their business ultimately. So that provides partners with a great opportunity to really get close to those customers, to support those customers, to understand, okay, what new technology do you need in your refresh? What new devices do you need to come into the business? What supporting services, software, equipment do you need to support that IT estate? How do you want to acquire that? What leasing options are there available? How do you want your leasing to work? Do you want it to be predictable? Do you want it to have a slow start and a build into a schedule? What options are there around for that customer? And this is where partners can really add their value, I think, and really get around the customer and build those tailored solutions. So I think that's a really important one for partners. And then the last point for partners, I would say, would be thinking slightly differently here, is that they would also want to start thinking about having the right amount of stock in place, or accessible at least, to support the increased demand that the data is showing, the predictive data is showing that we're going to be seeing it towards the end of the year. And that can be accomplished by working with a financing provider such as DLL that provides credit lines and extended payment terms that align to sales cycles and support cash flow for the actual partners. We call that commercial finance, floor plan financing, stocking financing, has lots of different names. Essentially, it's just financing of stock for a partner. But it gives those partners, those resellers, more financial flexibility, improved cash flow management. We can look at expanding credit facilities for the partners, and it gives them increased purchasing power as well to acquire the right amount of stock for them to be able to put into their customers via these refreshes. And that goes for channel partners, but also for distribution partners too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a key point to what you just discussed there, whether you're a partner, a customer, a manufacturer, whatever end of this upgrade that you fall on, the key piece here is to ask questions, right? If you're a manufacturer, you want to understand what your customer's end goal is and what's going to make their organization run more smoothly, to the point where they'll be a returning customer and continue to come back because you've built that trust with them. If you're a customer, you're asking the manufacturer, what's possible, what is the best route, kind of what is the differences between the different pieces of AI technology that I can purchase for my business right now. And then also on the manufacturer and the customer side, when it comes to leasing and payment solutions and plans, what's possible, how flexible can this be? Can we do monthly payments with a 90-day deferral? Can we do annual payments, semi-annual, quarterly? Really try to find that sweet spot between the exact technology that the business is looking for, but while also accommodating their financial flexibility and where they're trying to, hit targets and maybe build some capital to save for other projects, while also hitting this Windows 11 upgrade in stride as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. It's busy running a business and making decisions on a business for a business. But if there is ever a time to just pause from a customer perspective, to pause and look at options and think about, okay, what do I need that to look like, that refresh to look like moving forward? You're absolutely right, Ryan. Now's the time to just spend a little bit of time thinking about that to get it right, but then to set yourself up for the future refresh cycles as well that you're going to see in 3 or 4 years' time. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, James, for the discussion. We've covered so many great points regarding the upgrade and how financial partners can help smooth out this process for end user customers. And if you haven't started your Windows 11 transition yet, now's definitely the time.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, and if you'd like to learn more about how financing can benefit you or your customers, check out Windows 11 support page. You can find the link in our show notes today. And if you'd like to keep up with the world of workplace technology, healthcare equipment financing, subscribe to The Bridge, DLL's Life Tech newsletter on LinkedIn. The link is in our show notes. Thanks for tuning in on this episode of the Pulse Podcast, and thank you, James, for joining us. I'm Ryan, account executive at DLL. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of the Pulse Podcast.
This podcast is brought to you by DLL Group. All rights reserved. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for professional advice. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. Nothing herein should be construed as legal, tax, financial, accounting, or investment advice. Please visit www.dllgroup.com/aboutus for further details.